Where's that dash? Hello, brothers and sisters of the bar. Professor Jeremiah here. It's Church Warden's Mighty Smoky. I hadn't been on that much lately, and it's really because it's been a busy past 3 weeks. I tell you, it is just so much going on here, and the weather's finally turned out nice. For those of you who know about the container that I needed to have moved, I finally was able to move it because the ground had dried up enough for me to be able to get a couple of sky tracks in there to move it around. The other night I was reminded of a childhood experience of mine. I was 14 years old, and it was in the springtime, and I'd gone with my grandmother down to the old home place. One of her widowed sisters still lived in the great-grandparents' house, and another widowed sister lived down the road. And now with my grandmother there, I was in a house with 3 elderly women and an older man who lived in the neighborhood and had been a long-time friend of the family. I think he decided that he would liberate me from the hen house one evening. And he had called up his brother and arranged a coon hunt. And this was the first coon hunt that I'd ever been on. And we, got in his truck, and it was still, even though it was springtime, it was still cool. So I think it probably reached the high 40s. So not like it would be necessarily up north, but it reached the 40s. And I remember us going a little ways out. We were already in the country, but we went to where there was no houses. And that's where we met up with his brother, and he opened up the bed of his truck, and his dogs poured out of the box that they had and let the dogs go for a little ways. And we kind of checked all of our gear, and that was one of the first times I remember I had the old military light or lamp that had the curved neck to it, and they all made sure that I had the red lens on there, and we set off. And you could hear the dogs barking, saying come along, and then you would hear the dogs barking, over here, over here. That evening was a lot of fun. Old Tommy, the man who rescued me, he'd actually been on Iwo Jima. Now, he never really talked about it, and I'd been around a lot of veterans to know that some will talk freely of their time of service, and others, like old Tommy, he really didn't talk much about his time in the service. He'd mentioned that he'd been in the service, and you'd get a few words out about his time in the Pacific, but never any real details. And even at that time, I was old enough to know not to push Tommy for details. But Tommy, I don't know what percentage of him was Indian, but it really showed. He was definitely part Cherokee, and that really showed in both he and his brother's features. That evening was more of just a time of hanging out with some older men and chasing the dogs through the woods. We never did get a coon, and I'm not sure what we would have done if we had have. I remember I had a briar-proof jacket on. I think it's J.C. Higgins is my grandfather's, and similar material color to this vest. But underneath it, I had a vest that would hold shotgun shells, and then I had my 12-gauge double barrel with me. A lot of fun. It's also the first time that I ever remember. At one point, it was all quiet and so dark, a new moon, and Tommy and his brother started pointing out in the sky to me satellites. They would show me different satellites going across the sky, and I never knew that you could see them. And I haven't always even been able to find them again like we did that night. But that night they would quickly point and say, you see this light going across the sky? And it'd zip across the sky pretty quick. Of all the years that I was in Africa, I hardly would ever see that. And yet I was at a darker sky then than what I even would think that we had that night. Dash? This is a Bjorn, probably made by Soren or carved by Soren, but it's a Bjorny church warden. Dash, you're getting ready to go to sleep on me. Smoking some of my vanilla custard. I've really gotten used to this blend and have to say it's moved into a favorite blend of mine. Some of you have a chance. This coming Tuesday evening at 6:30 to 8:30 Central Time, we will have another Zoom meetup. And you never know who will show up at those Zoom meetups. This past week we had matches, 860. We also had PT Daily. We had Dance Dad Piper. And towards the end, oh goodness, my mind's going to leave me now. Sea Smoke Piper. I think I just butchered your name there, brother. And he was working on a pipe, just like similar to this one right here. I don't smoke my church wardens as much as I used to, and really need to start pulling them out more. Is the smoke getting you there, buddy? Or are you just tired? Dash is getting so gray on his muzzle. He misses Africa because he gets cold here. He didn't get cold in Africa. That's where you were born, isn't it, buddy? Well, all right, brothers and sisters. I hope you have a good weekend, and God bless.